Hey, Forex Fortune Hunters, it's Tom Wilmot. On this series of videos, we discuss the Metatrader trading platform and the currency markets, and we talk specifically about how to build templates that will help you trade with the trend. Now, back 2 years ago, I published a book called Forex Power Surge. It was the second book on Amazon Kindle, and in that book, we discussed 12 different templates that we've created using some of our favorite indicators. In this video, I'm going to show you a modification I've made to one of those recently that really has been helping me in my daily work. And the template is called Double Whammy, and it included the Trend Magic indicator that became very popular about 3 years ago, as well as modification with the T3 Tilson, which is a smooth moving average. So if this discussion is of interest to you, well, just hold on to your hat, because we'll get started right after this. Okay, friends, let's start out by just discussing the indicators that we've used to build the mini template that you see on the screen here. First of all, this is a chart of the pound and the US dollar, a 5-minute chart. You can use any time frame. I'm using the 5-minute because it helps me in my scalping trades. If I wake up on East Coast time, 7 o'clock in the morning and get online, typically there's a pretty nice move around that time period. And so the first indicator I'm going to discuss with you, first of all, let me right-click here on the screen, go to Indicators List, and we have a pretty simple configuration here. This magnified market price is just something I keep down in the lower right-hand corner. And basically the situation is that it shows you what the current bid is at any particular moment in time. I'm going to go all the way over now. I'll close this and go all the way over now just to show you again that here is the current bid. It's at 139.80.7 in terms of US dollars required to buy 1 British pound. Okay, so that's the first one. Now let's take a look at the second one. And in fact, that's our Trend Magic indicator. And in Trend Magic, didn't make any basic changes from the material that I got off the internet. I did change the colors here a little bit. For me, this usually comes in a blue. I changed it to white and red with a nice width associated with it, but I didn't change any of the inputs. The CCI is 20 and the ATR is 5. You can play around with that if you'd like, but I left it as default values. And once again, for those of you who are new, or those of you who have been testing us but haven't really made the plunge yet, for absolutely free, no obligation, I have a Dropbox file that includes all the indicators that we use in our videos, as well as some of the templates. And so if you're interested in having a screen that looks like this without having to fuss with it, please feel free to shoot an email by checking the link in the description below this video, and we'll be happy to respond as promptly as possible. I couldn't do that from our website, fxfortunehunter.com, simply because the program doesn't allow you to ship Metatrader files. It doesn't like the extension for some reason. So I put all the EXE and Metatrader MQL4 files up on the Dropbox site, and it's pretty easy to download and install. Okay, having said that, now let's close that one out. We have also, in addition to the Trend Magic, I've added, let me go back though and show you the following. If we take a look at indicators and we come down here to custom, I also, in the Double Whammy, I used the Chandelier, which is a stop value, and I'll show you that just for purposes here. We have the up chandelier, and you can notice here that when this changes to red and you get takeout of the chandelier and a reversal from support to resistance, then you're in a position where you can say, uh-oh, we've maybe got to exit this. And sure enough, within a few bars, we have a nice downward trend. Likewise over here, when the resistance is in place, when we take it out, we typically have a pullback. You can see that it held very nicely here by Trend Magic and then moved to the north, even though it had not yet crossed the T3 Tilson. Let's take out the chandelier just for clarity for a few minutes here. You can add it back in, of course, at any time. I'm going to get rid of it, sorry. And that'll just clean up the screen once again. Now here's our T3 Tilson, and notice that if you simply run your cursor over it, you can get a view of what it is. I put it to a 38 value, and it's been helpful there. You could tinker with 34, maybe. 24 seemed to move a little fast, but in any case, let's go here. I want to show you one other modification I made to it. T3 Tilson is on inputs. I actually changed this hot value, which is simply a variable in the formula, to 0.618. It comes up as 0.7. The 0.618 is obviously a Fibonacci value, and I inserted that not because I have any science that says it's appropriate, but because I felt like it. So there you go. That's the situation. And once again, you can see I made it a dark orange. You can choose anything you please. And now we have the situation. Now notice that when we have this crossover of the lines, this is the interesting thing. Price goes up through. You can see we had a modification down here. We came to this value. Now notice also that as you drop down below Trend Magic in this area here, we changed to red for a period of time. So that's sort of a no trade zone, although I've also found it very interesting that with the T3 at this 38 value, you have a significant opportunity when you get into this area at least to expect a bounce. And so you could use this in place of the chandelier as your stop loss area. And if you were to have done that here, let's say you took the trade in this area because you had a nice bounce off the Trend Magic. This value down to here is 12 or 13 pips. That's not going to, send you into bankruptcy court unless you're trading an incredibly big contract. But bottom line is, once you see this red happening, it's probably best to see, hey, maybe I should think about exiting this trade until such time as I get a close, once again, back above the Trend Magic. That's the area. Notice here it didn't work as well, but still your stop loss held in this area. Likewise over here, it turns to red, and then it doesn't hold. It drops down below with a close below the T3 Tilson here, and then you are kind of off to the races. Okay, so we'll take a brief pause here, and then we'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to try not to get too far off track here, but there are a myriad of other kinds of modifications you can make to customize this to meet your requirements. I've tried to keep it very simple for the crowd that doesn't like a lot of mess on the chart, and I can understand that for sure. And I think it works quite effectively, but there are some other indicators that you can obviously use. Now, in an original variation of the double whammy, we not only had the Trend Magic and the chandelier, we did not have the T3 Tilson, but we did add our multiple moving averages, and we called this a double whammy plus. You can notice here that what you have are the typical 12, 16, 20, and 24 EMAs. And you can see also here one of the familiar blue medallions. That's our crossover indicator that's also in the Dropbox file that shows you when you have a rollover of this. So you could add that to your arsenal of tools on this template if you'd like to. You can have this rollover to confirm. Notice you're down below the T3 Tilson. You are with a red Trend Magic, which means that we're headed lower probably. It means also after you see this medallion that you've had a rollover. Typically that's followed by a pullback towards into the bands. And so as a result, that's an interesting kind of an approach to this as well. And you can see over here I've added also, you can do some Fibonacci work if you'd like to. We had a move here to here, then we had a pullback to the 38, a pullback here to the 38 after we tried to get through the original high, and then we had a move up to the 127, and then finally a move that confirmed up at the 1618. I'm not going to get into Fibonacci's anymore today, but just to show you that if you want to play around with those kinds of things, it's perfectly possible to do so, to add value to your template and to your targets and so forth. Now, the next thing I'd like to just mention briefly, in case you notice it, this is the opening of the London exchange. It's 3 a.m. for me on the east coast of the U.S., so it'd be in the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock time frame over in London. Here is my 7 o'clock hour, which I use as kind of the informal opening of the U.S. market. I've seen a lot of price moves here, and you can see this is an active period on this particular chart. In addition, I added a line at the 9:30 hour, and this is all involved here in this particular custom indicator session times, and I'll show you how that works. You can see you can add 4 different lines to your program. I've added, like I said, the London mark and so forth, and then for me, 20 in the afternoons, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so that's 20 minus 7. I'm 7 hours behind the server is 13, so that'd be a 1 o'clock time frame when things begin to quiet down a little bit in the States for Forex. Most everybody's gone home by then. Surely the Asians are asleep, and the Europeans are probably in the pub at that point. So those are the session time indicators that you can see. I can take that off and close this out now so they're back and available to you. And obviously this one is the rollover of day that's automatically inserted by Metatrader. And you can see here as we moved into the Asian session, we had some difficulties up and down, some minor modifications of the price movement, and then we touched and did a kind of double bottom here and then moved higher. Notice once again we had our white trend magic, we had price move above the T3 Tilson, and then we had a mini pullback here. And by the way, I changed this to a 15-minute chart so you can see it works in multiple time frames. We had a mini pullback here and then a move higher. Now notice also the benefit, one of the benefits of your multiple moving averages, you had this push higher and you had a push lower. And this is in fact why I put the fibs on here from this low to this high. Bottom line here is that you do not have another crossover to the downside. You don't have one of those aqua medallions. You had simply a compression of the lines, and that's typically great for either the end of the pullback, or if you were going to fall further, you'd have to see this crossover to the downside. Notice the slingshot that takes place. And just to show you on the 15-minute chart the kinds of price movements you can get, this was good for 17 pips here on the, 27 pips, old eyes, 27 pips on the pound and USD at this particular moment in time back on the 25th of February. Okay, just to kind of wrap up, what I'd like to do is focus a little more on the best kind of setups in trend magic. We've seen a lot of times when the trend magic was breached and we get a red line when we're trying to go positive here on the upside. We can see that over here. You can see this kind of a breach when it did, at this level, for example, it didn't hold. It came back down again before it headed higher. In this case also, we had to go down and test the T3 Tilson. Now, in this particular area, notice that this particular amount is only like 8 pips, and this is still a 15-minute chart, so that's really not that big a deal. But once again, as we look at the simplified version of things without the multiple moving averages, we see that in this particular day on the 23rd of February, we had kind of just a chop in the middle of the session from London all the way through. In fact, big chop all the way from the beginning of that particular day until we had kind of a breakout here. and we sent our trend magic above the T3 Tilson. Then we came down into this area, and this is the dance that you can see. You see a flat trend magic line that flattens out, and then especially if it isn't breached to the downside, this is a potentially great place to do an entry. In this area here, for example, we'd be looking at if you had this particular line, or even if you took here, you'd be talking about a 16 pip on a 15-minute chart, which is 15 or 20 pips on a 15-minute chart. May not be too much to ask on a pullback or a risk to reward ratio. If you're patient, you can even get down into this area. I kind of like to wait until I see this movement here, not that the stop, but you can also use a strategy I like, which is to maybe wait until you get a close that's above the previous two closes, which would be a candle like this one here, or definitely this one here, and you can see that then that kind of confirms the trend, although it will give you a little bit longer move to the downside here, be in the 15 pip area. So if you're not comfortable with that much, you have to be a little careful. But it looks to me in this area, once you get these kinds of breakouts to the north, that typically you're going to have a pretty nice move. Now this one just went ballistic, as you can see, into the 24th of February, and I'm not saying that'll happen for you every time, but I do want you to see that if you're using Trend Magic in the T3 Tilson, you would be set up to accept a move of that sort. Then we come back here, you can see it breached the T3 or the Trend Magic here. We came back up and set, and before we then crossed over again. Now in this area here, once you go above, another strategy on Trend Magic is to wait until you get a close below, and then make this high your stop loss level. So you could also do that as a strategy. You could put your stop loss above this candle here. We had lower lows and lower highs. And so once you got this, your stop loss at this level, back up to the top of the candle, that would be 19 pips, which is under our 20 kind of limit on a 15-minute chart. This is obviously a much better kind of a setup here. It didn't breach. You went up and touched. You stayed below. And then in this particular area here, your stop loss only has to come back to the top of this candle, and now you're 13 pips. So you're always trying to minimize risk and still not take away your reward. And in this area, you trade 13 for 33, which is not a bad move at all. So anyway, then we have another crossover. We have a pullback. We have our move down here. You can see once we close above the line, we're getting a go signal on the white Trend Magic, and then a nice move to the north into the opening of the London session. So that's my handling of Trend Magic, and in this particular case, once again, just to review, if you do breach to the downside, you have to hope that this is going to act as your stop loss. You could, if you're not interested in if you're willing to absorb a little risk, you could take any one of these bounces here as an opportunity to move higher. You're probably going to get a pushback here, and it may then take it out. Like over in this area, you have to be careful about the bigger moves. But still in all, I think it's safest to kind of wait until your Trend Magic is returned to the white side, and also you have a close of your candle above the line. Okay, that's it for now, guys. I hope that's helpful to your trading. Please check out those indicators in the description below. Give us a subscription of your own if you don't mind. Give us a like if this material is helpful to your video, and hit the bell next to the subscription if you'd like to have an alert when we post new material. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.